Over the last two videos, we focused on what advocacy is, identifying the appropriate audiences for advocacy, and how to use key messages to effectively advocate. But the real fun begins when we realize that our story is an essential part of the message. In fact, most legislators, administrators, and partners are looking for personal experiences to help them really understand the importance of the issue. In the last video, we chose FFA as our key issue and identified 3 potential key messages. As we said before, there could be way more key messages than this, but we're leaning on those 3 during our advocacy series. FFA builds a future for agriculture, that FFA strengthens education, and that FFA grows leaders. We know these things are true, but other people don't necessarily know whether they're true or not. In order to bring our key messages to life, we need to provide compelling evidence, and this evidence can come in many forms. Maybe they're facts and statistics. Maybe they're examples based on your personal experiences. Many times, this evidence is most effective when it comes up wrapped in a personal story. Getting good at telling our story is important for so many reasons. First, it puts a personal face on an issue that might be just theoretical to someone. It's easier to care about the impact of a new agricultural policy when you meet someone who explains that how the policy will affect them. Next, our stories are not only powerful, but they are wanted. When we host legislators or talk to sponsors, we find that they often ask questions they want to ask FFA members because they want to know their perspective on certain issues. Education leaders want to know if a change to the start of a school year is allowing students to do better in class. Agricultural executives want to hear about what experiences and passions students have to see if they line up with their company's goals or needs. Finally, your story can be the vehicle to help someone understand in a way that they never have before. Facts and figures can be connected to show that an issue is bigger and more important than they may have realized, but that story gives you a great starting place to help someone who represents you understand an issue from your perspective. When we tell our story, we want to tell a story that does the 3 R's. It reinforces a key message, it represents more than just yourself, and it reveals an authentic connection to the issue. When you start considering what stories you may want to use or may want to tell, you should begin by thinking about these 3 R's. Let's try a completely fake scenario. Let's say we just found out that you have the chance to speak to your state representative who happens to serve on the education committee, and you know that they are considering reducing the length and number of school days across the state to reduce spending of salaries and utilities. But because of that, you've heard that elective courses like agriculture are likely going to be eliminated. In this moment, the most likely key message you use is the one about FFA and agricultural education, strengthening education. Starting with reinforce, what experiences have you had that reinforces the message that FFA and agricultural education actually strengthen education? Maybe your agriculture class was a place where other classes made sense because you applied those lessons to a real world scenario. Maybe your FFA experience helped you identify a future career and that motivated you to do better in all your classes, or to have a clear direction after graduation. Maybe your chapter improved the culture of your school with some of the activities that they did. If a story doesn't reinforce the message you intend to communicate, don't use that story. Keep thinking until you find one that is a better fit for the scenario. Next, represent. Laws, policies, and funding aren't supposed to just benefit one person or organization. Does the story that you're leaning towards represent more than just you, or is it a story that many students would connect to? Could you reasonably say that something like, I know so many FFA members who had similar experiences that made school have more value? Represent might also be a place to use a fact or figure to show that it's not just you. There are 35,000 students in Minnesota who are getting value out of agricultural education class that would lose the value if this change eliminated their access to electives. Finally, reveal. As you tell your story, you want to make sure that it shares a piece of who you are. It is also good for your listener to know that this message is important. You don't want to only use facts or statistics or things that you were told. You want to include your own story as a way to help someone feel the value that you feel. With these 3 things in mind, a story might sound like this. I'm a junior at the Mountain Lake Public High School in Mountain Lake, Minnesota. I've been taking an agriculture class and have been an active member in FFA for 3 years. Last year, I remember being in my biology class and recognizing so much of the content was connected to the animal science class that I had taken that semester. I was able to catch on more quickly and own that information in a way that wouldn't have been true without my agriculture class. I was also really shy until my agriculture class let me be involved in FFA, and now I'm so much more confident because I have a place where I belong and where I can speak up. Agriculture isn't required, but agricultural education and FFA strengthens the school experience. There are students in my class who found a place to belong and to figure out their future because of FFA, and there would probably be people that would be fine in class, but who figure out their passions because of a speaker or an FFA conference. I know this is true for so many high schoolers throughout Minnesota. 35,000 kids are taking an agriculture class each year. This really matters because it's a time for us to take these electives because they improve the relevance of our education. When we tell these stories, it is important that we're using them as a tool to connect our listener to our point, and that we are humble enough to seek out additional evidence to include. But we can never expect a conversation to go exactly as we plan. It's good to think about 3 or 4 possible stories that you might tell that can relate to your key message. If you have more than one message that applies to your meeting, think of a story for each of those messages. And if you're visiting as part of a group, don't forget to let everyone else have a chance to contribute. You don't have to give every story that you've ever had. As this video ends, take time to list the experiences, facts, and examples you know that relate to the key messages of your issue or organization. Circle at least 3 of those stories that you could think serve as a foundation for effective advocacy conversation. Practice telling your story until you feel confident that it is true, descriptive, inclusive, and well known enough that you can tell it quickly. In our next session, we'll look at what it means to successfully prepare for an advocacy meeting. Until then, take some time to consider how meaningful your experience can be in communicating needs for the things you care about most.